But next we have the chief guest address, and we are privileged to have with us the Deputy Governor of State Bank of Pakistan, Mr. Saleem Ullah. He is in charge of financial inclusion, digital financial services, information technology, and innovation at the State Bank of Pakistan. Mr. Saleem Ullah will share SBP's vision for enhancing digital supply chain finance. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Saleem Ullah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning, Zafar Saab, Hasni Saab, Murray Saab, Beg Saab, Asif Shah Saab, Atif Saab, Najeeb Saab, Atif, and so many other colleagues, friends sitting here. It's a real pleasure, and I'm saying with the core of my heart, it's a real pleasure to be here. And let me congratulate Hamza and Moniz, and also Zafar Saab for taking this initiative. And this is being held at a very, very pertinent time that we as the regulator and the industry is pushing towards tapping this opportunity that is available in the form of improvements in the digital technologies. SME, we all have been recognizing and saying, have been the most critical segments of our economy, contributing, as Zafar said, about 40% in the GDP, over 25% in the export earnings, over 80% in non-agricultural employment, and one of the major sources of employment creation in the country. But unfortunately, this has been the least important sector for the bankers. And the number shows that still we are extending less than 5% of the funding to the SMEs. And that 5% is from an overall financing that is being extended by the banking system. And you would be surprised, not surprised, but you would know that overall pie is also very small. And that pie is less than 11% of our GDP. The total credit to GDP ratio in Pakistan is less than 11%. That tells the story that not only the SMEs, but the industry overall, the real sector overall, has not been benefited by the banking system. So we must see that. So about a month back, we were having a celebration or a seminar on account of the MSME Day, probably on 27th of June, where Hasnisa was there and some other colleagues were there. So still, we could see that we have been having all these discussions with respect to the very, very low contribution of private sector or the banks in the SMEs growth. So, why I gave the reference of that event, that in that event I also said that it's our collective failure that we have not been able to extend sufficient funding to the SMEs and to the real sector as a whole. So we will have to accept that failure, and me as the central banker also accept that failure. This is the failure on the part of the central bank as well, that we could not push the industry and could not make sure that the industry is developing its portfolio. But we have to transform this failure into a success. To me, there is no option but to succeed. And we'll have to develop a very robust, competitive, customer-friendly, SME-friendly financial system in the country. And how can we do that? There are some very positive initiatives. One led by Atif, the task force under the leadership of very able Zafar Saab, that they have developed very, very pertinent recommendations to increase the flow of funding to the SME sector. And a number of those recommendations pertain to the government, and we have already requested the government to initiate working on these recommendations and implementing those recommendations, and that include the SME census, that include the revised definition of SMEs, and that includes development of some sort of credit coverage mechanism for the banks while they would be lending to the SMEs. And another development that even happened before the establishment of the task force, you would have seen the SBP strategic plan. And in that strategic plan, which is a 5-year plan that will be culminating in 2028, we have envisioned that we will at least be doubling the existing size of outstanding SMEs in the country. The existing size is around 540 billion rupees. So we will be doubling that, inshallah, with the collaboration and partnership of the industry. We will be doubling that to 1,100 billion rupees when we will be completing the strategic plan. And this I'm talking about the outstanding levels, not the disbursements. Disbursements, round the clock chalti rehti hai na. There are lines available. At times you would see the disbursements are much higher than the outstanding levels, but we are talking about the outstanding levels. And then we have envisioned that we will be having at least 4 times increase in the outstanding borrowers. Currently, they are hovering around 170 to 180,000 SMEs. They are having access. And we have plans that, inshallah, we will be increasing it to around 750,000 SME clients by that year end. And for that to achieve, what is the strategy? Kya karna hai uske liye? One thing that I emphasized in my earlier discussion as well, that first and foremost thing is that having that belief that SME is a real profitable business line, I can have sustained access to cash flows and profits while I will be developing my SME portfolio. So that is the first thing, and that we have required in our letters, in our communication to the banks. They have already submitted their plans, and that primarily focuses on that this is the business line, and share with us your plans, your strategies, that how you're going to develop that business line so that it could ensure sustained stream of revenues for the banks. ये जो blips आई है ना आपके पास पिछले 2 साल में tons of profit banks have made, ये सब ऐसे नहीं रहना. It's a temporary phase. The interest rates were very high and the government funding needs were very, very large. So that's why the banks have been able to make tons of money. But still, to make sure that you continue earning tons of money, you'll have to invest in the real sector. And for the real sector, it is the priority sectors like SMEs, like agriculture, like IT, and for which Zafar Saab is leading those task forces which are developing those recommendations. We will also be transforming ourselves to make sure that the regulatory framework is really conducive. It's not that just a lip service that यहाँ आके तकरीरें कर दी हैं उसके बाद जाके वही आपकी जो पुरानी डगर है उसी पर चलना है. तो it's not that, ऐसे तो नहीं चलेगा. So we have to admit that the regulatory framework should also be conducive and supportive. And one thing let me emphasize here very specifically and explicitly. We will have to move away from this subsidy culture. We'll have to develop this sector on real commercial lines, on commercial basis. ये जो clutches of subsidy है, it has not enabled us to develop this sector in the last 70, 75 years. If it would have worked, we would not have been sitting at 170,000 borrowers out of more than 6 million SMEs operating in the country. We would not have been having the outstanding levels which are less than 4% of the total financing. So that subsidy culture is not a solution, that is clear. But one thing that we admit, and we have collaborated and partnered with the banks to request the government that yes, there is a need for risk coverage. There should be risk coverage available to the banks so that they should feel more comfortable in lending to the SMEs. So alhamdulillah, that recommendation has also been accepted, and a risk coverage facility for which budgetary allocation has also been made. We are just waiting for the formal notification. It was done by the ECC, and I believe that it would also have been ratified by the cabinet as well. So that risk coverage facility is also coming, and that is across the board. It's not specific. Any fresh loan given to the SMEs from July onwards, 1st July onwards, 20% coverage in case of the smaller enterprises, and 10% first loss coverage in case of medium enterprises. It has been agreed, and allocation for the current year has been made, and also the scheme that we had sent to the government, it has also been approved. So we will be notifying that very soon, inshallah. There are numerous other things, but let me come to here. The slide is that time is up. So one of the most critical aspects of this strategy is the leveraging technology. If we can leverage the technology, only then we can meet these ambitious numbers that I have just discussed. So leveraging technology so that we can leverage the technology to reduce the transaction cost for the SMEs, to make things simpler, efficient, convenient for the SMEs, and to make things simpler and convenient for the banks as well, because they also have the transaction cost. So that will, among others, the conducive regulatory framework, the risk coverage, the engagement with the banks, among others. One of the most prominent initiative would be that how can we leverage the technology? Because without leveraging the technology, this goal cannot be achieved. And this event is very, very pertinent about this. And Zafar Saab has given numerous examples across the globe that how the leveraging of technology helped in improving the SME's access to the financial services. We also have not very large number, but still we have number of good stories, success stories. One success story is sitting just Mr. Munis Nahman, who is one of the organizers of this event. Because the kind of platform the people have developed, Dukaan, which is something that is providing that hope that yes, we can, inshallah. And then one initiative that we conceived well before the RAS, I will be coming to the RAS in a moment. Way back in 2019, we announced a challenge fund. Come up, and that was a challenge fund whereby we invited proposals from the industry that come up with a solution that how can we leverage the technology to improve the funding to the SMEs, to tap the supply chain financing sector. And out of that challenge fund, one institution that won that challenge fund was Hubble, and they came up with a platform, Visak. That is also a success story. Then there are others as well, Cash Now and some others which are working that are providing, I think, state-of-the-art solutions, particularly for the digitization of the supply chain. And supply chain, as per one of the studies done by IFC, it is valuing around $18 to $20 billion. And if we can tap, say, 50 to 60% of that supply chain in the next 5 years, that will enable us to achieve our target. So that supply chain, to me, is a real low-hanging fruit. And we must collaborate and partner so that we could tap and we could have our hands on this low-hanging fruit. And for that purpose, as Zafar Saab said, that we have been evaluating various options, and then after consulting PBA and the industry, we came up with that instructions that let's have a digital supply chain financing solution within 6 months. And number of banks, about 5, 6, have already initiated the digital supply chain financing. And the response is pretty good. The default, they are funding to the new to the bank customers. And still, the default is just 1 in last 2 years. And these are the one who had never accessed the banking services. And that gives you a lot of hope and confidence that these platforms, inshallah, would work. And there are numerous banks which have already started developing those platforms. And the flexibility is that you can develop your own mechanism. That is your call. Or you can partner with like initiatives like Dukaan, like Visakh, like Cash Now, and numerous others. That is your call. That how you can tap that very segment. Then Zafar Sahab also highlighted, my apologies, I have taken a bit more time. Digital banks, Humayun is sitting here, so 5 digital banks we have given in principle approval, and they are in the process of developing their infrastructures. They are also expected to come up with very innovative products that will enable us to push our digitization efforts. And that will help not only in addressing the SME finance development issues, but it would also address the issue of currency in circulation. If we can bring down the currency in circulation, which is right now 35% of the deposit base. So in the next 5 years, if we can bring it down to 25% of the deposit base, so that will add about 2 to 2.5 trillions of liquidity in the banking system. And that again would enable the banking system to extend these or to use this liquidity for funding the real sector, the SMEs, the agriculture, the industries, etc. And lastly, let me come towards, another point, EMIs. It would not be fair if I don't discuss the EMIs. Although they have taken some time, but now they are also taking the pace, and they are developing and offering the digital wallets, which are also, I think they would also be contributing in our overall digitalization efforts. And this partnership, this collaboration will have to be promoted. We'll have to promote those synergies so that it's not necessarily that I would be doing each and everything by myself. I should tap the strengths and opportunities that are available with my partners and with the stakeholders. Now, lastly, with respect to RAST. To me, this is one of the most effective, most impactful interventions that have been made. And that is going to transform the overall digital landscape in the country, and the vision of developing a digital ecosystem that will be, this RAS will be the pivot of that digital financial ecosystem. You know, we have about 37 million RAS IDs. We started in 2021, over 37 million RAS IDs. We are processing over 2 million transactions every day, valuing about 60 billion rupees. We have so far processed about 15 trillion rupees of these transactions. And you know, the first trillion, it took us about 360 plus days in completing the first trillion. And the last trillion, it took us just 21 days. So it is keeping the pace. We started the initiative of P2M, which is a very, very, I think, game changer. When I met Monis in Singapore, so he said the game changer, I fully agree with him. It's a game changer, inshallah. We initiated P2M in September 2023, and by now we have over 220,000 merchants which have been onboarded on RAS. And that would sort of, to me, it's a pretty good achievement, because it's not that far that when we have initiated. And the initiatives like OneLink, if someone is sitting from here, that they initiated that OneGo, and that OneGo is aggregating the aggregators. And that is also providing the aggregators, the relatively smaller aggregators, they are working at the ground level and onboarding the customers, having the due diligence, CDDs, all these things. And then hooking them and plugging them with the Rust through one link. So that is also a big, big hope. We are also evaluating the proposals with respect to our open banking initiative. And this Rust platform has made it more and more easier. We are evaluating the proposals, say, for example, utility companies. Through this open banking platform, they would not be needing any intermediaries. They would just be using that platform and having all their bill collections, etc. So there are numerous initiatives which are going on, which are in line with our vision of developing a digital ecosystem, and that would require collaboration, that would require partnership amongst the regulators, State Bank and SCCP, amongst the industry players, PBA, and let me say this, gives me a lot of comfort and confidence that the current leadership is taking a very proactive sort of a stance towards helping and supporting not only the industry but also the regulator so that we could achieve our common goals. I'm really grateful and thankful to all of you for listening to me. I don't know whether I was making sense or not, but my thanks and gratitude and congratulations to Hamza, to Mones, to Zafar Saab, and to all the colleagues for organizing this event. Thank you very much.
बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया सलीम उल्लाह साहब.